Hello everyone. I know all of you are very safe at your home. Who are there with you? Your parents, brothers and sisters. Anybody else there? I think some of you have grandparents with you. Right? Okay. Do you love them? Why do you love your grandparents? Do they give you the cash? Or do they support you or protect you from whenever your parents scold you? Right. And some parents, some grandparents tell you the stories too. Right? Now listen me. Okay. Where do you get the stories from? Where do you get the story? Yes, you get the story from the parents or grandparents or from the books. Right? Where do they get the stories from? Where do the grandparents get the stories? They get the stories from their parents and their grandparents and from the great grandparents. Right? Now, just like that, the stories should be passed on one generation to another generation. They tell the story to their their children, and they tell it to their own children, like that, generation to generation. Then only the stories live with us. Otherwise, it will disappear from the earth. Right? Right. Now you know what is the importance of the March 20th? March 20th is the World Storytelling Day. You know, June 5th, World Environment Day. How do we celebrate World Environment Day? By planting more trees and protecting the nature and earth as it is. To give the awareness to the people of protecting the nature as it is. So, like that, the March 20 is also we celebrate as a storytelling day. That means to give the awareness to the people of the importance of the stories. Stories should be passed on one generation to another generation. Now let's watch and listen the storytelling of two children. Okay?
One day, a fox was walking near the well. Accidentally, he fell into the well. It was not a very deep well. He tried his best to get out, but he couldn't. At that time, a very thirsty goat passed through the well, and she saw the fox in the well. She asked, "What are you doing here?" The cunning fox replied, "I myself jumped into this well." The cunning fox replied, "I myself jumped into this well. I find here very comfortable, cool and pleasant. If you want to drink sweet and cold water, come down and experience a pleasure." Without thinking of the results, the goat jumped into the well. Suddenly, the fox jumped on the back of the goat, and at the another jump, he was out of the well. The fox smiled to the poor goat and went to his own way. Do you know what happened to our goat? Our poor goat, she remained in the well alone.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to tell the story of the King of the Jungle. Do we know who's the King of the Jungle? Yes, it is the lion. So I'm going to tell the story of the lion and the mouse. Once upon a time there was a lion. He was sleeping. A mouse came and jumped up and down upon the lion. The lion wakened and get angrier. He lifted his big paws and huge jaws to swallow the mouse. "Pardon, O king," cried, and mouse said, "I will never repeat it again. Leave me alone, and I shall never forget your kindness. And if there's a need, I will surely help you." So the lion left the mouse and thought, "Can this little mouse help me?" After a few days, the lion was captured by a hunter in a net. The lion roared and roared to help him. At last, the mouse ran and came to help the lion. He knocked away the net to help the lion with his sharp teeth. Soon after, the lion was free. The moral of the story is never think that too small or too awake living thing cannot help each other.
How was it? Did you enjoy it? They presented it very well. Nice presentation, isn't it? Right. Now listen. Who are the characters of that story? Are they animals? Or birds? Or human beings? Yes, both the stories. The characters are the animals, right? Now, do you remember the story that Victor's channel class, the teacher told you a story? The story of a rich voyager, isn't it? Now, who are the characters? Right. In these two stories, the characters are the animals. Do you know what this type of stories called? What are they called? Yes, they are the fables. What do you mean by fable? Fable are the short stories which teach us a lesson or a moral, and the characters are the animals. Fable are the short stories which teach us a moral, the animals as the characters. Now, do you know, I think all of you in your class library, I found a lot of Aesop fables are there. What do you mean by Aesop fable? Yes, Aesop is a very famous storyteller, lived in Greece many years ago. He was the best storyteller. He told about 725 stories, and each story, those have a moral. In the story, then the two children gave you the stories. Then what is the moral of that story? Moral of the story, do you know? Okay, now in the rich voyager story, there is the God helps those who help themselves. Okay, can you tell what is the moral of the story, the goat and the fox and the goat? Anybody can tell? Yes, look before you leap, right? Then another, the second story, that the lion and the mouse. You should find it out yourself, okay? Right. Now listen, in some stories, the morals are written as the proverb. What do you mean by proverb? A lot of proverbs are there in Malayalam. Can you tell any proverb? What do you mean by proverb? Can you tell in Malayalam? Yes, Paranjolli. Right. A lot of proverbs are there in English. A stitch in time saves nine. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Look before you leap, etc. Right? Now, in some stories, the morals are in the form of a proverb. Right? Now, proverbs are the short sentences which gives us advice, or which reveals the truth of the common life, the experience of the common life. The proverbs are the short sentences which tell us the advice and also the experience of our common life. Right? Now listen me. And there is another story. I am going to tell you another story which is a very familiar story to you. Then you have already learned in the 6th standard. Right? Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful lady in a country. Now, her father, mother, and she were there in that family. One day, her mother fell in sick. She was in the sick bed. Then, at the end of her life, now she called Ella. And the name of that girl was Ella. Now she called Ella to her deathbed and told her, I am going, my dear, and you should be good and pious. God always look after you, right? Now, then saying this, mother died. Then what happened to, after that, you know what happened? Then I'll show you some pictures. Here are the major events of the story Cinderella. All of you go through it, then you could understand the whole story. How was it? Is there any moral in that story? Can anybody tell? Right, now listen. Now Cinderella was a very beautiful lady. That is why that stepsisters were jealous of her. That is the main problem, issue there, because of that beauty. Then what do you get from this story? What is the moral did you get? Now, there are different moral. One thing is like this: the real beauty comes from within, not from the outside. Then the real beauty is both outside beauty and inside beauty. That means very kind, should be very kind, right? Another example, another one, that is God helps those who help themselves. Now Cinderella was very kind and very poor. She always served her stepsisters and very kind enough. Okay, and one more is there. Then you should believe on your dreams, that you have a great wish that will come true. If you have a very burning desire, a great wish to fulfill as a dream, then sure that will come true if you have such a wish. These are the morals of the story Cinderella, right? Here in your textbook there are some proverbs and their meanings in the other side. Now first of all you should read all the proverbs and match them with the meaning, right? That activity is there in your textbook, page number 38. Look at the proverbs in the first column. In the second column, the meanings of these proverbs are there, but they are not in a correct order, correct sequence. Then you should match each and every proverb with the meaning in the second column. The first one is done for you. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Meaning, don't take the chance of losing something you have in search of something better. Thus, match each and every proverb with the meaning in the second column. Okay? Here is a fable for you in your textbook. Keep your eyes open. Shall I read it for you? All of you look at the book very carefully and read after me. Once upon a time, there was a lion that grew so old that he was unable to kill any prey for his food. So he said to himself, I must do something, or else I'll die for starvation. He kept thinking, and at last an idea struck him. He decided to lie down inside the cave, pretending to be ill. Those who came to inquire about his health would become his prey. He put his wicked plan into practice, and it started working. Many of his well-wishers got killed. But evil is short-lived. One day, a clever fox came to visit the lion. He stood at the mouth of the cave. He looked around and understood the reality. So he called out the lion from outside and asked, How are you, sir? The lion replied, I'm not feeling well. Why don't you come inside? Then the fox replied, I would love to come in, sir, but I see all the footprints as going into your cave. but none is coming out. I would be foolish enough to come in. Saying so, the fox went to alert the other animals. Okay, have you read it? Now listen me. How does the keep your eyes open? How does the story start? How does it start? എങ്ങനെയാണ് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്? Yes, once upon a time there was a lion. The starting of that story, there was the sentence, once upon a time there was a lion. It's a good starting or a beginning, isn't it? Now look at the ending. Saying so, the fox went to alert the other animals. That is the end of that story. That is the conclusion of that story. With that sentence, the story is concluded. Okay? Now, between the beginning or the starting and the ending, between these two, there is the content, the main content. Which was that content? Yes, what is the situation of that lion? What happened to the lion? What was the trick? And what was the trick played by the clever fox? And what did the clever understand? And how did the fox do the trick? That all are in between the beginning and the ending. That was the main content, middle part. Okay? Now, listen, for each and every story, there should be a beginning, a starting sentence, a beginning, the style of the starting, of a story. There should be a style, that's a sentence, a beginning sentence, and there should be a ending sentence. Now, there are the features of a story are, first, there should be a beginning, and next a middle part, and at last there is an ending or conclusion part. That is the features of the story. Okay. Now let's look at another part. Look here. A few beginnings of the stories are given here. Let's read. The first one. On the 20th of May in the evening, on the far side of green trees, it was a very hot day. One fine day, long ago, there was a desert wind blowing that night. These are the beginnings or the starting of some stories. Okay. Now, I think all of you had already read a lot of stories. A lot of stories are there in your mind. Now you please think about that story. How does each story start? How is the story started? Or what is the first sentence of the story at the starting? How does it start? Now you please think about some beginnings of the story in your own mind. നിങ്ങളുടെ മനസ്സിലുള്ള സ്റ്റോറിയിലെ ബിഗിനിങ് അതിനെക്കുറിച്ചൊന്ന് തിങ്ക് ചെയ്യാം, ഒന്ന് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യാം നിങ്ങൾ എങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയാണ് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, look here. Here is another activity for you. Now these are the ending of the two different stories. The fox and the other animals lived happily ever after. The lion did not ever play any more trick on others. Now you go through the stories you have already read. A lot of collections are there. I think a lot of collections are there in your memory. Then go through it and find out or pick out the sentences which is the last sentence or the conclusion part of the stories in your memory, and take down from it, pick out those sentences from there and write down that sentence in the space given there. Okay, right. Here are some stories. All of you read these stories very well. Okay, here I have given you some stories. All of you should read each and every story very well and do this activity. Listen here. There are two boxes: title of the fables and morals. Title of the fables: The Fox and the God, the Lion and the Mouse, the Honest Woodcutter, the Fox and the Grapes, the Hare and the Tortoise, four bulls, a fox and the lion. Its meanings are there in the second column, but they are in a correct order. You should make them in order. How do you make? Read each and every story and find out which is the best suitable meaning to that story. Now I'll give you one example. Honest woodcutter, that is matched to this meaning. Thus, you should match each and every one to its own meaning. And you should write only this box in your notebook and match it well. And match that meaning, proverb and meanings. Okay? Now, send it to me.